Welcome back to Arise News Hour. I'm Charles Anyagolu. Now let's spend some time talking about Cameroon and what's been called the Anglophone crisis. It's the conflict that's been raging for some time now, in which rebels in the country's English-speaking regions want to break away from the French-speaking majority. More than 4 million people are now suffering the consequences of the violence, according to the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. They also say fighting has forced more than 400,000 people from their homes. Well, for more on this, let's speak now to the African Affairs analyst and publisher of Africa Briefing, John Ofe-Ansah. And John, I see you fiddling with your earpiece there. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you all right, yes.
Now, these are big numbers. I mean, I just mentioned there from the United Nations. I mean, when it says sort of 4 million people are affected by this violence, how affected exactly are they?
Well, some of them have fled and have been internally displaced. Others have fled to neighboring Nigeria. And the most affected are, as usual, women and children. Lack of access to health facilities, poor sanitation. The children cannot go to school, and so on and so forth. So I mean, the effect, the effect is rather severe on this demographic.
Well, absolutely, and it's a story that we don't get to hear that much about. It's actually one of Nigeria's neighbors, Cameroon is, and of course, in addition to this Anglophone conflict that you talked about, I mean, Cameroon has already been suffering from the Boko Haram crisis, which is largely playing out in Nigeria, but also has infiltration in Cameroon. Lots of people displaced by that, and a huge number of people apparently also coming into Cameroon from Nigeria.
Yes, it's become some sort of a dichotomy there. The Nigerians affected by the Boko Haram insurgency, some are, well, running away, seeking exile, if you like, in Cameroon, whereas those affected in Cameroon are also vice versa going to Nigeria. So it's sort of a social, dichotomy, if you like. Mm-hmm.
And I think the most worrying part of all that, John, is that, the United Nations is talking about tens of thousands of people. So it's a massive sort of displacement there. And I mean, it just sounds, I mean, one imagines a very complex humanitarian operation overlapping these two countries and complicated by security.
Exactly. I believe the Cameroonian government so far, from the way I say it, is rather unwilling or not ready, right, to solve this socio-political, problem that we see in the northwest and southwest of Cameroon, because this is a problem that has been festering, if you like, since independence in 1960, and things came to a head in 2016 when the armed, can I say, uprising, for lack of a better word, that started and intensified, and approaches have been made to the president, to the government, all appear to have fallen on deaf ears. I mean, there's a general Anglophone conference called for last November 21st. But that was cancelled at the last minute without a new date being set. Okay, so all in all, it appears the government is not ready, to solve this social political problem, and that coupled with the Boko Haram insurgency is rather aggravating, an already dire situation.
So very briefly, John, it is your sense that a big part of this conflict, of course, being the antipathy of those who want to break away towards the central government in Cameroon, a big part of this is that the government, appears to not to be helping, but appears to be hindering, to some extent, the humanitarian work in Cameroon.
Exactly, because look, the Anglophones, are calling for a national dialogue, okay, and also asking the government to release, those separatists jailed, imprisoned, and also allow those in exile to return. But all this again, have fallen again on deaf ear. The government hasn't made any encouraging responses. And again, the Boko Haram issue too is adding to the problem, right? So I believe that the government needs to, sit up and step up, get its act together to address this dual problem.
Perhaps there needs to be more international pressure, but for the moment, John, we appreciate your analysis. John Ofe Ansah is, of course, the African Affairs analyst and publisher of Africa Briefing. You're watching Arise News Hour, entertainment and sport coming up, including Jay-Z, Meek Mill, and sport and business leaders pledge